Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The acid rain of Calthera 6 struck the rusted metal roof like angry fingernails, creating a symphony of metallic pings that Damon Vance had grown to find comforting. He sat hunched over his workbench, the harsh blue light of his arc welder reflecting off the sweat on his brow as he carefully fused another component to his synthetic arm. "Damn power coupling," he muttered, adjusting the neural interface with precision that belied his large, rough hands. The arm, a patchwork of salvaged military-grade tech and black market components, hung limp as he worked, connected to his shoulder by a lattice of glowing blue veins and carbon fiber tendons. Outside, Calthera's notorious scavenger district descended into its nightly chaos. The border planet served as a nexus for those who existed between worlds, laws, and identities. Its black markets thrived under the protection of corrupt officials, and its ancient ruins attracted treasure hunters and archaeologists alike, those with credentials and those with guns. But none ventured near Damon's compound at the edge of the district. Not anymore. Through the grimy viewport of his shelter, the purple-tinged lightning illuminated the twisted skeleton of a Federation cruiser half buried in the rusty soil. The wreckage cast long shadows, creating the illusion of movement where there was none. Damon glanced up, his gray eyes narrow and vigilant. Rumors about him had spread through the district like a virus. Some said he was a former military operative gone rogue. Others claimed he dealt in forbidden tech. The smartest ones whispered that those who crossed Damon Vance had a habit of disappearing, completely, permanently, without a trace. None of the rumors were entirely wrong. The meteorite alert blared, interrupting his work. Damon checked the atmospheric scanner as it tracked incoming debris from the planet's shattered moon. The display showed a larger object than usual, something dense, metallic, and moving too deliberately for random space rock. "Interesting," he said, rising from his workbench. His synthetic arm activated with a low hum as neural commands flowed through the newly repaired circuits. He grabbed his heavily modified pulse rifle and the atmospheric mask hanging by the door before stepping into the toxic rain. The object crashed 3 kilometers north, near the ancient ruins the locals called the Whispering Tombs. Damon's hovercycle cut through the rain like a phantom, leaving a trail of disturbed droplets in its wake. As he approached the impact site, his scanner picked up an energy signature that didn't match any known meteorite composition. The crater glowed with an unearthly blue-violet light. At its center lay not rock, but a sleek containment pod, its surface etched with symbols Damon hadn't seen in 15 years. Leonaran script. His heart rate spiked, but his expression remained impassive. He dismounted the hovercycle and approached the pod cautiously, pulse rifle raised. The pod's exterior was scorched from atmospheric entry, but its integrity remained intact, mostly. A fracture ran along one side, leaking a luminescent mist that hissed when it made contact with the acidic puddles. Damon knelt beside the pod, wiping condensation from its transparent section with his human hand. His breath caught in his throat. Inside was a woman. No, not just any woman. Her skin was the color of twilight, a deep violet with subtle iridescence that shifted with each shallow breath she took. Her features were delicate yet strong, with high cheekbones and full lips pressed into a grimace of pain. Silver-white hair framed her face like a halo, floating in the suspension fluid that half-filled the damaged pod. But it was the collar around her neck that froze his blood. A band of what appeared to be living metal, pulsing with inner light, wrapped around her throat like a serpent. Its surface rippled with symbols similar to those on the pod, containment glyphs, warning sigils, and power dampeners. Damon knew exactly who he was looking at. The knowledge was a weight in his chest, heavy with memory and guilt. "Petra," he whispered, the name both familiar and foreign on his tongue. The last of the Leonarans, a race that had mastered the quantum phenomenon known as resonance, the ability to manipulate reality through precisely controlled energy frequencies. A civilization that had been systematically eradicated 15 years ago in what official Federation records called a containment action, what Damon called genocide. The woman's eyes fluttered open at the sound of her name, revealing irises of liquid silver that seemed to capture and reflect the lightning above. Her gaze was unfocused, confused. She didn't recognize him. Damon holstered his weapon and worked quickly to stabilize the pod's life support systems. The diagnostic scan revealed multiple system failures: oxygen recyclers damaged, temperature regulators offline, nutrient delivery compromised. She wouldn't survive another hour inside. With practiced efficiency, he overrode the pod's security locks and released the hermetic seal. Suspension fluid spilled onto the muddy ground, sizzling as it neutralized the acid rain. He lifted her from the pod with gentle strength, cradling her against his chest. Her skin felt unnaturally cold, and dark bruises circled her wrists where restraints had been. Her body was streaked with both dried blood and a substance that glittered like pulverized stars. Resonance dust, the physical manifestation of quantum energy used by her people. Kala Vesh Noruum, she murmured, her voice shifting between recognizable galactic standard and something ancient and musical. The stars will remember when you do not. Don't try to talk, Damon said, carrying her to his hovercycle. You're safe now. A lie, perhaps. No one was truly safe on Calthera 6, and certainly not with him. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness during the journey back to his compound. Each time her eyes opened, they seemed more alert, more aware, and more afraid. Inside his shelter, Damon laid her on his narrow cot and began treating her wounds. The bruises around her wrists were severe, suggesting long-term restraint. Smaller injuries covered her body, but none appeared life-threatening. It was the collar that concerned him most. The device pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, growing brighter when she stirred. Up close, Damon could see that it wasn't merely attached to her skin. It had partially fused with it, tendrils of metal woven into the tissue of her throat like roots. "Slave collar," he muttered with disgust. "Who did this to you?" Her eyes snapped fully open at his words, focusing on him with sudden clarity. "Not slave," she rasped in galactic standard. "Seal." Damon frowned. "Seal?" She tried to sit up but fell back with a grimace of pain. "The resonance," she whispered, "must contain." Understanding dawned slowly like a cold sun rising over a barren landscape. The collar wasn't a restraint to control her movements. It was a dampener, a seal, to contain the power that flowed through her veins. But she was injured, suffering, and the collar was clearly causing her pain. "Hold still," Damon said, retrieving a scanner from his workbench. "Let me see how this thing works." The device revealed what his eyes couldn't. The collar's internal structure consisted of quantum-locked particles arranged in a configuration that created a closed energy loop. It fed off her own bioelectric field while simultaneously suppressing the larger energy signature that emanated from her core, elegant and cruel in its design. "I can remove it," he said, meeting her silver gaze. Terror flashed across her features. "No!" She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Dangerous." Damon gently pried her fingers loose. "I've handled dangerous before." He gestured to the scars that mapped his face and the synthetic arm that gleamed in the low light. "The collar is killing you. Your body is fighting it, and you're losing." She stared at him, conflict evident in her expression. "You don't understand what I am." "I understand more than you think," he replied quietly. Her eyes widened slightly. "You know me?" A loaded question. Damon chose his words carefully. "I know your people. I know what was done to them." Pain that had nothing to do with physical wounds flashed across her face. She turned away, silver tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "Then you know why the seal must remain." "What I know," Damon said firmly, "is that you're the last of the Leonarans, and you're dying because of that thing around your neck." He reached for his tools, selection a precision laser cutter and a quantum destabilizer. "The choice is yours, but make it knowing that without intervention, you'll be dead before Calthera's third moon rises." She was silent for a long moment, her chest rising and falling with labored breaths. Finally, she closed her eyes in resignation. "If you remove it, be prepared." "For what?" Her silver eyes opened again, filled with a mixture of fear and something darker. "For what comes after?" Damon nodded once and set to work. The collar's intricate locking mechanism resisted conventional tools, but the quantum destabilizer gradually disrupted its atomic bonds. As he worked, he felt her watching him, studying his face as if searching for something. "Why?" she asked suddenly. "Why help me? You know what I am, what my kind can do." Damon's hands remained steady as he carefully severed another connection. "Because your eyes look like they used to believe in something." She blinked in surprise, then gave a small, sad smile. "Once. Yes." The final bond broke with a sound like crystal shattering. The collar separated into two halves, revealing angry red skin beneath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air in the room began to vibrate. Damon stepped back as a wave of energy radiated from Petra's body. Her back arched, and she gasped in what could have been agony or ecstasy. The lights in the compound flickered and died. Equipment shorted out in cascading sparks. Outside, the rain suddenly stopped, droplets hanging suspended in mid-air as if time itself hesitated. Through the viewport, Damon watched in awe as the sky above Calthera 6 transformed. The perpetual storm clouds parted to reveal a cosmos bleeding crimson, stars pulsing with unnatural light, nebulae contracting like massive lungs, the very fabric of space rippling like disturbed water. The resonance was awakening. And somewhere across the galaxy, ancient systems designed to detect such power surged to life. Warning beacons activated on derelict monitoring stations. AI sentinels stirred from dormancy. And aboard the Sanctum, the fortress ship of the Galactic Inquisition, cold eyes narrowed as alerts flashed across holographic displays. High Inquisitor Relari turned to her lieutenant. "Set course for Calthera 6, she ordered, her voice like steel against stone. "The resonance has been detected." "The containment failed?" the lieutenant asked, fear evident beneath his professional demeanor. "No," Relari replied, studying the energy readings with clinical detachment. "Someone removed it." Back in Damon's compound, the energy wave subsided. Petra lay motionless on the cot, her breathing steady now, her skin glowing with a subtle inner light. The bruises on her wrists had vanished, and the wounds that marked her body had closed, leaving not even scars. Damon rebooted his systems and assessed the damage, minimal, considering the power that had just been unleashed. When he turned back to Petra, she was watching him with new awareness, as if seeing him for the first time. "You're still here," she observed, surprise evident in her melodic voice. "Did you expect me to run?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Most would." She sat up cautiously, touching her neck where the collar had been. "Most should." Damon shrugged and turned to a storage unit that had survived the energy surge. He pulled out a thermal blanket and tossed it to her with casual irreverence that belied the gravity of the situation. "I'm not most people," he said simply, then gestured to a food synthesizer that was sputtering back to life. "Hungry?" Petra wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, studying him with that penetrating silver gaze. "Why did you help me?" she asked again, clearly unsatisfied with his earlier answer. Damon met her eyes without flinching. Because your eyes look like they used to believe in something. He paused, then added quietly, and maybe I need to believe in something too. Outside, the suspended raindrops finally fell, hitting the roof in a sudden deluge. But above the storm clouds, the sky remained blood red, a cosmic wound that would not easily heal. The resonance had been unleashed, and the universe had begun to notice. 3 days after Damon removed the collar, a dead plant sprouted in his compound. The withered succulent, a resilient Caltheran thorn bush that had perished months ago, suddenly erupted with vibrant purple flowers that emitted a faint humming sound when touched. Damon stared at it for a full minute before looking toward the makeshift sleeping quarters where Petra rested. "That's new," he muttered, probing one of the flowers with a calibration tool. The instrument's reading spiked off the scale. For 72 hours, reality around his compound had become increasingly flexible. Gravity fluctuated in unpredictable patterns. Tools hovered momentarily before crashing down. Water droplets from his leaking coolant system occasionally flowed upward. Electronic systems malfunctioned in ways that defied technical explanation. His synthetic arm sometimes operated with enhanced capabilities, as if drawing power from an unseen source. Petra's recovery had been astonishingly swift. The physical wounds had vanished within hours of removing the collar. But her consciousness seemed to drift between worlds, her silver eyes often focusing on things Damon couldn't see. He approached her sleeping form cautiously. She had wrapped herself in a thermal blanket salvaged from a Federation emergency kit, her violet skin contrasting sharply with the metallic material. Her white hair splayed across the pillow like solar flares. "You're making my plants resurrect," Damon said when her eyes fluttered open. "Impressive trick." Petra sat up abruptly, disorientation giving way to alarm. "What?" He gestured toward the thorn bush. "Dead for months. Now it's staging a comeback." She stared at the plant, her expression shifting from confusion to dismay. "The resonance is leaking." She pressed her palms against her temples. "I can't contain it all. Not yet." "Is that dangerous?" Damon asked, his tone deliberately casual despite the tension coiling in his chest. "Plants today. Reality tomorrow." Her silver eyes met his. "My people called it resonant overflow. The power builds until it finds outlets." She hesitated. "It will get worse before I regain control." Damon nodded, processing this information with outward calm. "So we might have floating furniture, or spontaneous weather, or dimensional rifts, temporal distortions." She looked away. "My sister once lost control and accidentally reversed time in a 3-kilometer radius. 87 people relived the same 3 minutes for what felt like weeks." "Your sister," Damon repeated, his voice carefully neutral. "There were other survivors?" Pain flashed across Petra's features. "No, Nayar died with the others." She touched her throat where the collar had been. "At least, I always believed she did." Damon turned away, busying himself with the calibration tool to hide the conflict in his expression. "You should eat something. Build your strength." "I had a dream about her," Petra said softly, ignoring his suggestion. "About the last day, about the betrayal." Damon's synthetic hand clenched involuntarily, servos whining in protest. "Dreams are just dreams. Not for my kind." She stood, moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost preternatural. "For us, dreams are memories realigning, fragments of truth seeking pattern." She walked to the thorn bush and touched one of the humming flowers. It brightened at her contact, the vibration intensifying. "I saw her face as our city burned. She was crying, but not for our people." Petra's voice hardened. She cried for him, the human commander she had trusted, the one who led the slaughter. Damon's jaw tightened. He knew that commander. knew him intimately. The war was complicated. Petra laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Was it? My people never attacked yours. We merely existed with an ability you couldn't control or replicate. The flower in her hand began to glow brighter, its structure transforming from organic matter to something that resembled crystallized light. The Federation feared what they couldn't understand, so they destroyed it. Not all humans supported the action, Damon said quietly. No? She turned to face him fully, the crystallized flower disintegrating into motes of light between her fingers. Where were those humans when my world burned? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with accusation and history that Damon wouldn't acknowledge. Not yet. I'll get you some food, he said finally, retreating to the synthesizer. Nights on Calthera 6 stretched to nearly 30 Earth hours, giving the darkness a weight that pressed against the compound's viewports like a living thing. Damon used the time to repair salvaged technology, the rhythmic work of his hands providing distraction from more troubling thoughts. Petra proved to be a quick study of Earth artifacts. She devoured the small collection of physical books Damon had accumulated, rare treasures in a digital galaxy, with insatiable curiosity. She disassembled and reassembled obsolete gadgets with intuitive understanding, often improving their function in the process. Your species creates such contradictory technology, she observed one night, manipulating the components of an ancient music player. Brilliant and primitive simultaneously. Damon glanced up from the weapon system he was modifying. We're contradictory people. That much is evident. She adjusted a wire and the device suddenly projected a three-dimensional soundscape that filled the room with haunting melodies. You build tools to connect, then use them to isolate, create medicines to heal, then develop poisons to kill. Her silver eyes reflected the holographic display. You're walking paradoxes. Says the woman who can warp reality with her emotions, Damon countered, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Petra tilted her head, studying him. You're not afraid of me. It wasn't a question, but Damon answered anyway. No, you should be. He shrugged and returned to his work. Add it to the list of my poor decisions. A small smile played at the edges of her lips, a rare expression that transformed her face. Damon found himself watching her more often than his repairs, tracking the graceful movements of her hands, the subtle shifts in her expression. The next morning he placed a steaming mug before her. The black ceramic featured a faded slogan, "Not today, Galactic Empire." "What is this?" she asked, inhaling the aromatic steam. "Coffee, or what passes for it on this backwater planet." Damon sipped from his own chipped mug. Ancient Earth stimulant, tastes like engine oil but keeps you alert. Petra took a tentative sip and wrinkled her nose. It's bitter. Like most worthwhile things. Damon pushed a container toward her. Add sweetener if you want to ruin it properly. She laughed, another rarity that seemed to surprise them both, and reached for the sweetener. Their fingers brushed, and a visible spark leapt between them, dancing across their skin before dissipating into the air. Damon withdrew his hand sharply. Static discharge? Petra stared at her fingertips, which still glowed faintly. Resonance recognition, she whispered. But that's impossible unless... She looked up at him with sudden intensity. Who are you, Damon Vance? Really? The question struck dangerously close to buried truths. Damon retreated behind practiced detachment. Just a salvager trying to survive. Lies don't become you, she said softly. I can feel the resonance responding to you. That doesn't happen with ordinary humans. Damon turned away, his synthetic arm whirring with tension. Maybe I'm not ordinary. No, she agreed. You're not. Beyond Calthera's turbulent atmosphere, movement stirred in the cold vacuum of space. 3 bounty ships, sleek, predatory vessels equipped with stealth technology, dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Their transponders remained dark as they initiated long-range scans, searching for the energy signature that had triggered every black market alert from the core worlds to the outer rim. The lead ship was piloted by a Corsarian hunter, his scaled skin reflecting the glow of tactical displays. "Signal confirmed," he hissed to his crew. "The Resonance lives. The bounty is legitimate." In another sector, deep within an asteroid field thought uninhabited for millennia, ancient machinery groaned to life. Maintenance drones, dormant for centuries, activated emergency protocols, their singular programming focused on a threat long thought eliminated. And aboard the Sanctum, High Inquisitor Relari studied the holographic projection of Calthera 6 with cold calculation, her pale features, accentuated by ceremonial scars that mapped her successful hunts, remained impassive as subordinates scurried around her. "The last Leonarin," she mused, her voice carrying the artificial modulation of enhanced vocal cords. "How unexpected." Her lieutenant approached cautiously. "The Federation protocols are clear, Inquisitor. The resonance must be contained or eliminated." "I'm well aware of protocol, Lieutenant." Relari's augmented eyes, mechanical orbs capable of perceiving energy signatures invisible to normal sight, narrowed. But this situation offers unique opportunities. Whoever removed the containment seal possesses knowledge that could be valuable. She gestured and the hologram zoomed in on Damon's compound. "Prepare the extraction division. I want them both alive, initially." Days blended into weeks as Petra gradually gained control over the resonance flowing through her. The anomalies around the compound decreased in frequency but increased in significance when they occurred. Twice, Damon witnessed localized time distortions, moments when raindrops reversed direction or his movements left luminous afterimages hanging in the air. During one such event, a patch of barren ground outside the compound transformed overnight into a thriving garden of plants unknown to Calthera's ecosystem, bioluminescent flora with geometrically perfect structures that seemed to communicate through patterns of light. Damon found Petra kneeling among these plants at dawn, her hands buried in the soil, her expression one of both wonder and sorrow. "They're from home," she explained without looking up. "The resonance remembers what I've forgotten." He approached cautiously, noting how the plants seemed to reach toward her, responding to her presence like worshippers to a deity. "They're beautiful. They're ghosts," she corrected, her voice tight with emotion. "Echoes of a dead world." Damon knelt beside her, his human hand hovering uncertainly before settling on her shoulder. "Not completely dead, not as long as you remember." She turned to face him, tears like liquid mercury trailing down her violet cheeks. "But I don't remember. Not everything. The collar suppressed more than just the resonance. It locked away parts of my past." Her hands clenched in frustration. "I see fragments in dreams. My sister's face, a burning city, a human soldier carrying a child through fire. But I can't connect them." Damon's heart hammered against his ribs. The child. She was dreaming of the child, of herself. "Maybe that's a mercy," he suggested, his voice rougher than intended. "No." Petra's eyes flashed with sudden intensity. "Knowledge is never a mercy, but it is always power, and I need all the power I can gather if I'm to survive what's coming." "What do you mean?" She gestured toward the sky, where the unnatural crimson had become a permanent fixture among the stars. "They're coming for me. For us." The moment the seal broke, every hunter and enforcer in the galaxy received the alert. Her expression hardened. "The Federation doesn't leave loose ends, Damon, especially ones that can unravel reality." Before he could respond, the compound's perimeter alarm shrieked to life. Damon sprang to his feet, reaching for the sidearm he kept holstered at his hip. The scanner showed 3 ships breaking atmosphere, Their trajectory aligned directly with the compound's coordinates. "Bounty hunters," he growled, recognizing the configuration. "Fast response time." Petra stood, her posture shifting from grief to alertness in an instant. "What defenses do you have?" "Enough to make them regret landing." Damon activated his synthetic arms combat protocols, the appendage transforming as weapon systems deployed from hidden compartments. "Stay inside the compound. The bunker level has shielding that should mask your energy signature. I won't hide while you fight my battles." She stepped forward, and the air around her began to shimmer with barely contained power. "This isn't your battle," Damon argued, checking his weapon systems. "It's mine, my territory, my rules of engagement. They're here for me, not you. They'll have to go through me to get to you." The words emerged with such fierce conviction that they both paused, momentarily startled by their intensity. Petra studied him with newfound curiosity. "Why do you protect me with such determination, Damon Vance? What am I to you?" The question struck too close to truths he wasn't ready to face. "Later," he deflected, moving toward the defense console. "First, we survive. Then we can discuss my questionable life choices." The bounty ships descended with tactical precision, forming a triangular pattern around the compound. Their weapon systems powered up, energy signatures registering on Damon's scanners with alarming intensity. "Last chance," he said, fingers hovering over the defense protocols. "Stay in the bunker." Petra's response was to step closer, her shoulder pressing against his. "We face this together." The first volley of weapons fire struck the compound shields, the impact reverberating through the structure like thunder. Damon activated the countermeasures, and hidden turrets emerged from the compound's exterior, returning fire with ruthless efficiency. One of the bounty ships took a direct hit, its engine core destabilizing in a cascade of explosions. The other two adjusted their approach, deploying ground assault units, mechanized combat frames piloted by heavily armed hunters. "They're not taking chances," Damon observed grimly. "Full extraction team." Petra watched the tactical display with growing tension. "They'll overwhelm your defenses." "Probably," he agreed, his expression hardening, "but they'll pay for every step." The next barrage hit with greater force, breaching the outer shield layer. Alarms blared as structural integrity compromised in 3 sections. One of the mechanized frames reached the compound's entrance and began cutting through the reinforced door with a plasma torch. Damon grabbed his tactical rifle from the weapon rack and positioned himself for the inevitable breach. "Stay behind me." Petra ignored him, stepping forward as the door began to glow red from the torch's heat. Her hands lifted, fingers splayed as if feeling the air currents. "Enough," she whispered. The words seemed to ripple through the compound, carrying weight beyond its simple meaning. The air around her hands began to crystallize, forming intricate geometric patterns that expanded outward like fractal ice. "Petra." Damon started, but his warning died as the compound's interior was suddenly bathed in blinding silver light. Petra's eyes had transformed into pools of luminescence, her body hovering several centimeters above the floor. The resonance flowed from her in visible waves, distorting the space around her like heat rising from desert sand. "I reject your violence," she said, her voice overlaid with harmonics that seemed to emanate from multiple points in space simultaneously. "I deny your intention." The door exploded inward, not from the hunter's torch, but from the force of Petra's will pushing outward. The mechanized frame was caught in the blast, its pilot screaming as the resonance wave engulfed the machine. Damon watched in awe as the metal and composite materials crystallized instantly, transforming into a statue of transparent, geometric perfection. The pilot remained visible inside, similarly transformed, his expression of terror preserved in crystal clarity. The wave continued outward, catching the second frame and then the remaining ships above. Within seconds, the entire assault force had been transmuted into crystalline sculptures that glittered in Calthera's harsh sunlight. Petra collapsed to her knees, the light fading from her eyes. Damon rushed to her side, supporting her weight as she swayed dangerously. "That was," he began, words failing him. "Terrifying," she finished, her voice raw. "I didn't know I could do that. I didn't mean to." Her hands trembled as she stared at them in horror. "I killed them. They were trying to kill us," Damon reminded her, though the scale of power he'd just witnessed had shaken even his combat-hardened composure. "That doesn't justify it." Petra looked up at him, fear replacing the ethereal power that had filled her moments before. "The resonance responds to emotion, to fear, anger, desperation. I couldn't control the output." Her fingers clutched at his arms with desperate strength. "If I lose control like that again, I could destroy everything, everyone." Damon held her gaze steadily. "You won't." "You can't know that." Her voice broke. "Promise me something, Damon. If I lose control, if the resonance threatens to consume me completely, promise you'll end it. End me." The request hit him like physical blow. After everything, after 15 years of atonement, of exile, of searching, she was asking him to kill her, to finish what he had started all those years ago. "No," he said firmly, his human hand cupping her face with unexpected gentleness. "I won't promise that." "You must," she insisted. "No one else can get close enough." Damon shook his head. "I won't end you, Petra. If the resonance threatens to consume you, I won't kill you to stop it." His voice dropped to a fierce whisper. "I'll hold you until the stars burn out." The intensity of his words shocked them both into silence. Something shifted between them, a recognition deeper than conscious thought. Petra's silver eyes searched his face as if seeing him truly for the first time. "Who are you?" she whispered again. The question weighted with new meaning. Instead of answering, Damon helped her to her feet. "We need to move. That display will have triggered every sensor in the sector. More will come." They traveled through the night, abandoning the compound before reinforcements could arrive. Damon led them across Calthera's treacherous wastelands toward the ruins of an ancient observatory nestled in the mountains. The structure, a relic from the planet's pre-Federation era, stood half-collapsed against the sky, its massive telescopic array now skeletal and exposed to the elements. The observatory's substructure is reinforced with materials that dampen energy signatures, Damon explained as they approached. The original scientists used it to study radiation phenomena without interference. Petra surveyed the crumbling edifice with skepticism. "It looks ready to collapse." "That's intentional." Damon activated a concealed panel disguised as weathered stone. A hidden doorway slid open, revealing a surprisingly well-maintained interior. People avoid ruins they think are dangerous. Makes for good hiding places. Inside, advanced equipment lined the walls, surveillance systems, weapons caches, emergency supplies. The facility had been prepared with meticulous attention to detail, ready for extended occupation. "This isn't improvised," Petra observed, running her fingers along a console that hummed to life at her touch. "You've been preparing for something." Damon secured the entrance before answering. "I always have contingencies." "This is more than a contingency." She turned to face him, her expression hardening. "This is a military-grade safe house with enough firepower to start a small war. Who are you hiding from, Damon?" He hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "Everyone." "Not good enough," she pressed. "Not anymore. Not after what I just did to protect you." The accusation struck home. Damon sighed and activated one of the monitors, bringing up a secure database. Computer, access file, Eidolon. The system hummed, then projected a holographic display showing official Federation military records, most heavily redacted, but enough remained visible to tell a story. Images flickered. A younger Damon in specialized combat armor, mission reports with casualty counts in the thousands, commendations for actions classified beyond top secret. Eidolon was a ghost operative, he explained, his voice flat. Black operations specialist tasked with missions that officially never happened. His synthetic hand clenched. Assassinations, sabotage, population control. Petra studied the projection, her expression unreadable. You were a killer. I was a weapon, he corrected without emotion. Pointed and fired by others. Until? Damon's jaw tightened. Until I was ordered to eliminate an entire research outpost, Terra Station 9, officially a botanical research facility in neutral space. He brought up another file, this one encrypted with additional security measures. Unofficially, it housed experiments on hybrid children, attempts to artificially integrate alien genetic capabilities into human subjects. Understanding dawned in Petra's eyes. They were trying to replicate the resonance. Without success. Damon's voice grew quieter. The children were failures by Federation standards, unstable, unpredictable. My orders were to eliminate the evidence before rival factions discovered the program. You killed children, she whispered. I followed orders. His expression remained impassive, but something dark flickered behind his eyes. Until I found a containment chamber they hadn't included in the briefing, a special subject they were particularly interested in. He pulled up a final image, a security still showing a small isolation chamber. Inside, a child with violet skin huddled in the corner, silver eyes wide with fear. Petra's breath caught. That's you, Damon confirmed. Or it was. You were different from the others, not a hybrid, but a pure Leonaran child, somehow saved from the purge and brought to the facility for study. She approached the image slowly, reaching out as if to touch the frightened child. I don't remember this. The collar likely suppressed the trauma. Damon closed the file, the projection vanishing. I was supposed to eliminate all subjects. Instead, I extracted you, placed you in a containment pod, and programmed it to drift in deep space until it found a suitable, habitable world. His voice hardened. Then I returned and told my superiors the mission was complete. You defied orders, Petra said softly. For me. I defied orders because there are lines even weapons shouldn't cross. Damon turned away, unable to meet her gaze. The Federation didn't see it that way. They discovered the breach, tracked the pod's initial trajectory. I barely escaped with my life. So Eidolon disappeared. Eidolon died, he corrected. Damon Vance, salvager, exile, nobody, took his place. Petra moved closer, her voice gentle but insistent. Why don't I remember any of this? If you saved me. Damon's expression clouded. That's what doesn't make sense. The pod was programmed for long-term stasis, but you should have retained memories from before, unless the collar wasn't just containing the resonance, she finished. It was containing memories, too. Her hand went to her throat reflexively. But I didn't have it when you found me as a child. No, Damon agreed, his brow furrowing. You didn't. The implication hung between them, unanswered questions multiplying. Who had placed the collar on her after her escape? How had she ended up back in a containment pod similar to the one he'd used for her rescue? And why had the pod returned to this sector, where the odds of Damon finding her again were astronomically small? Coincidence isn't a force I believe in, Petra said, echoing his thoughts. Neither do I. Damon checked the observatory security systems, unease growing in his chest. Someone engineered this reunion. The question is why. Night descended over the observatory, Calthera's fractured moons casting splintered light through the damaged dome. Damon maintained watch while Petra meditated, working to stabilize the resonance flowing through her system. The power she'd unleashed against the bounty hunters had shaken her confidence, leaving her determined to establish greater control. The resonance responds to emotion, she explained between sessions. Fear amplifies it, anger distorts it, peace channels it. Damon observed her practice from his position at the monitoring station. And what emotion turned those hunters into crystal sculptures? She frowned. Protection, the instinct to defend. Her silver eyes met his. To defend you. The admission hung in the air between them, charged with implications neither was ready to address. Damon turned back to the monitors, which displayed the surrounding terrain and near orbit. No immediate threats appeared, but experience had taught him that absence of evidence wasn't evidence of absence, especially when dealing with high-level hunters. "We should be safe for now," he said, changing the subject. "This facility is shielded against standard scanning methods. Even high-grade Federation equipment would have difficulty." He froze as a particular alert flashed across the screen, a deep space transmission intercepted by the observatory's communications array. The origin coordinates sent ice through his veins. "What is it?" Petra asked, sensing his sudden tension. Damon's voice dropped to a near whisper. "The Sanctum." Her face paled. "The Inquisition's fortress. They've dispatched a hunting party." He expanded the intercepted transmission, analyzing the encrypted data with practiced efficiency. "Led by High Inquisitor Relari herself." "The Butcher of Orion Prime," Petra breathed, recognition flashing in her eyes. "She led the final assault on my homeworld." Damon nodded grimly. "And she's very good at finishing what she starts." The knowledge settled over them like a shroud. The bounty hunters had been merely the first wave, opportunists hoping for quick profit. The Inquisition represented something far more dangerous, systematic, implacable extermination. "How long do we have?" Petra asked, her meditation forgotten. 3 days, maybe 4 before they reached the system. Damon began activating additional security protocols. "We should use the time to prepare for evacuation." "No." Petra's voice hardened with sudden resolve. "I'm done running. I'm done hiding. My entire life has been spent in containers and collars because of what I am." Her hands clenched at her sides, a faint luminescence pulsing beneath her violet skin. "If Relari wants the last Leonaran, she can face the resonance at full strength." "That's suicide," Damon argued. "The Inquisition brings planet killers to bedroom brawls. They don't take chances." "Neither will I." Petra approached him, determination radiating from her like physical force. "You've shown me who you were, Damon, who you are. Now I need to discover who I am, without fear, without constraint." Their proximity ignited something electric between them, the air charging with unseen energy. Damon found himself unable to look away from her face, from the fierce light in her silver eyes. "You're not alone in this fight," he said quietly. "Whatever comes." Petra's expression softened and she reached up to touch his face, the first such contact between them. Her fingers traced the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, lingering on the rough texture. "Why did you really save me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "All those years ago. The truth." Damon could have deflected, could have hidden behind duty or morality or any number of partial truths. Instead, he found himself speaking words he'd never admitted aloud. "Because when I looked at you, I saw something worth saving in a galaxy that had convinced me nothing was." His human hand covered hers where it rested against his cheek. "Because saving you was the first time I felt human again." The admission broke something open between them, a barrier neither had acknowledged but both had felt. Petra stepped closer, the space between them vanishing as her lips found his. The moment of contact sent shockwaves through the observatory. The resonance responded to her emotions, creating a field of energy that lifted them both centimeters off the floor. The broken dome above them reflected cascading auroras as reality itself seemed to bend around their embrace. Their passion ignited like a supernova, fierce and unrestrained. Clothing fell away as they surrendered to the gravity between them, their bodies entwining with desperate intensity. The resonance amplified every sensation, every touch, creating feedback loops of pleasure that transcended physical experience. They floated above the observatory floor, suspended in a cocoon of energy that responded to their movements, their desires. Their bodies glowed with internal light, Petra's violet skin luminous with silver patterns that shifted and flowed, Damon's form outlined in complementary radiance that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. In that sacred space between moments, between breaths, something profound transformed within both of them. The final walls between their minds crumbled as the resonance forged connections that transcended physical union. And in that moment of perfect harmony, Damon remembered. He remembered the weight of a small child in his arms as he ran through flames, the terror in silver eyes as alarms blared, the desperation as he sealed the containment pod, promising a frightened girl that she would be safe, that he would find her again someday. He remembered the collar, not a restraint placed by enemies, but a protective seal he had acquired from the research facility's deepest vaults, a device designed to contain the resonance until its bearer was ready to control it. He had placed it on her himself before launching the pod, knowing the power within her would otherwise tear her apart. He remembered his own words. "When you're ready, when it's safe, the seal will break, and I will find you." The memories cascaded through him like a flood breaking through a dam, 15 years of sealed history returning in a single, overwhelming wave. Above them, Calthera's fractured moons aligned in a configuration that occurred once in a generation, their combined light streaming through the observatory's broken dome to bathe the lovers in silver radiance. When they finally descended back to the floor, still entwined, the world around them had changed. Plants had sprouted from the observatory's stone floor, not Caltheran vegetation nor the strange flora of Petra's homeworld, but something new. Hybrid blooms that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, their structure mirroring the cosmic patterns that had swirled around the joined bodies. Petra lay in Damon's arms, her breathing synchronizing with his, her silver eyes wide with wonder and new understanding. "I remember," she whispered. "Not everything, but enough. You were there. You saved me." Damon nodded, unable to form words as the weight of recovered memory pressed against his consciousness. "The collar," she continued, piecing together fragments of truth. "You placed it on me, to protect me." "Yes," he managed finally, "to shield you until you were strong enough to control the resonance yourself." She touched her abdomen, a gesture so subtle he almost missed it. "And now, something new has begun." Damon followed her gaze, understanding dawning slowly. "The resonance has found another vessel," she confirmed, a mixture of awe and fear in her voice. "A child, our child." The revelation stunned him into silence. The statistical impossibility, human and Leonaran reproduction, was theoretically impossible according to every xenobiological study, competing with the undeniable truth they both sensed. "The resonance creates its own paths," Petra explained, reading his thoughts. "It seeks continuation, evolution, and it has chosen this union as its means of survival." Damon placed his hand over hers, feeling the faint pulse of energy beneath her skin. "A child with the resonance will be hunted from the moment of existence," she finished, her expression hardening with protective instinct. The Federation, the Inquisition, the remnants of my people's enemies, all would either destroy or weaponize such a being. Then we protect it, Damon said with quiet determination. Whatever it takes. Petra studied his face, searching for any hesitation and finding none. You understand what this means. The child of Eidolon and the last Lienneron, a living embodiment of resonance, could either rewrite galactic morality or unmake all that exists. I understand, he affirmed, his voice steady. And I choose to believe in creation over destruction, in possibility over fear. She smiled then, a radiant expression that transformed her face. So do I. As dawn broke over Calthera's tortured landscape, they remained entwined among the luminous flowers their union had created. Above them, the crimson sky gradually faded to reveal stars pulsing with renewed vigor, as if the cosmos itself acknowledged the conception of something unprecedented, something that would change everything. The Inquisition fleet materialized from hyperspace like predatory birds descending on carrion. 7 warships, sleek obsidian vessels bristling with weapons capable of rendering planets into asteroid fields, arranged themselves in strategic formation around Calthera 6. Their hull configurations followed the sacred geometry of the sanctum, a perfect heptagon of destruction, with each vessel positioned to maximize coverage of both space and planetary surface. Damon observed their arrival through the observatory's enhanced sensors, his expression hardening into the emotionless mask he'd worn as Eidolon. They're deploying atmospheric penetration craft, he noted, watching smaller vessels detach from the primary fleet. Standard Inquisition protocol: secure from orbit, then send in specialized hunters. Petra stood beside him, one hand resting protectively over her abdomen where their impossible child grew. 2 weeks had passed since their union beneath the broken observatory dome, but already she could feel the new life within her, amplified by the resonance, developing at an accelerated rate. "How many?" she asked, her voice calm despite the fear coiling within. 12 dropships, each carrying an Inquisition strike team. Damon's synthetic hand tightened on the console. And something larger, a command vessel. He enhanced the image, revealing a craft twice the size of the others, its surface etched with ceremonial markings. "Relari is coming personally." "Of course she is," Petra murmured. "The Butcher wouldn't delegate the elimination of the last Liennaran." Damon straightened, decision crystallizing in his eyes. "We need to move. Now." They had prepared for this moment, gathering supplies and planning escape routes, but the speed of the Inquisition's arrival had caught them off guard. The fleet should have required another day at minimum to reach Calthera. They must have pushed their engines beyond safety parameters, risking catastrophic failure in their determination to reach their target. "Where?" Petra asked as they moved through the observatory, gathering only essential items. "They've surrounded the planet. There's nowhere to run." "We're not running." Damon activated a concealed panel in the observatory floor, revealing a transport tube that pulsed with emergency lighting. "We're regrouping." The tube carried them deep beneath Calthera's surface, through tunnels that appeared ancient yet maintained with modern technology. After several minutes of rapid descent, they emerged into a vast underground chamber that stole Petra's breath. Before them stood the skeleton of a massive Earth battleship, not a replica or a smaller vessel, but one of the legendary Dreadnought-class warships that had served as the backbone of humanity's early interstellar fleet. The craft had been partially disassembled, its vital components integrated into the surrounding bedrock to create a fortified bunker of unprecedented scale. "Welcome to the Ouroboros," Damon said, activating systems that brought the installation humming to life. Lights flared along pathways, illuminating a facility easily capable of housing hundreds. "My contingency of last resort." Petra stared in disbelief. You built this? I repurposed it, he corrected, leading her toward a central command hub. The ship crashed here during the colonial wars, centuries ago. I discovered it while searching for a secure location to— he hesitated. To prepare for your return. You knew I would come back? She asked, following him through corridors lined with advanced weaponry and survival equipment. I hoped. Damon's voice softened momentarily before returning to tactical precision. The facility is self-sufficient: power generation, food production, atmosphere recycling. It could withstand planetary bombardment if necessary. They reached the command center, where holographic displays activated to show the Inquisition forces deploying across Calthera's surface. Tracking algorithms predicted their search patterns, highlighting the most immediate threats. Why bring me here instead of escaping? Petra asked, studying the tactical projections. With your knowledge of Inquisition protocols, we could have slipped past their perimeter. Damon activated what appeared to be an ancient weapons locker. It opened to reveal a suit of armor unlike any Petra had seen, matte black with subtle iridescence that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. The breastplate bore a single symbol, a serpent devouring its own tail. Because it's time to stop running, he answered, his voice deepening with resolve. Time to finish what began 15 years ago. He removed the armor with reverent precision, each piece designed for both protection and lethality. This wasn't standard military equipment. It was custom-built for a specific operator, with neural interfaces and weapon systems integrated directly into its structure. The Eidolon armor, Petra whispered, recognition flashing in her silver eyes. I've seen it in my dreams. It was supposed to remain buried. Damon began equipping the suit, each component locking into place with pneumatic precision, along with the man who wore it. The transformation was both physical and psychological. As the armor encased him, Damon's posture shifted, his movements becoming more fluid, more lethal. The final piece, a helmet with a reflective faceplate that concealed his features entirely, completed the metamorphosis. When he spoke again, his voice carried electronic modulation that rendered it barely recognizable. The Inquisition believes they're hunting two fugitives. They don't realize they've awakened something far worse. Petra approached him cautiously, her hand reaching out to touch the serpent symbol on his chest. What are you planning? To give them what they fear most. The helmet's optics flared with cold blue light. A ghost. High Inquisitor Relari stepped onto Calthera's surface with ceremonial precision, her specialized environmental suit adapting instantly to the planet's harsh conditions. The suit, like everything associated with her office, served both practical and symbolic functions. Its crimson accents against obsidian armor represented the blood she had spilled in service to galactic order, while augmented systems enhanced her already formidable combat capabilities. Status, she demanded, her artificially modulated voice carrying to her strike team commanders. Search patterns Alpha through Delta deployed, Inquisitor, reported her lieutenant, a scarred veteran of a dozen purges. No direct contact yet, but we've detected resonance traces at 2 locations, a compound in the scavenger district and an abandoned observatory in the northern mountains. The observatory is more recent, Relari noted, examining data feeds through her helmet's enhanced display. Focus efforts there, and deploy the nullifiers. The lieutenant hesitated. The nullifiers are untested in field conditions, Inquisitor. Their effect on local reality might— The resonance threatens all reality, Lieutenant. Relari's tone brooked no argument. Deploy them. From her command vessel emerged 3 containment units, each housing a being that defied conventional categorization. Neither fully organic nor mechanical, the nullifiers represented the Inquisition's latest weapon against anomalous threats, entities specifically engineered to counteract and absorb the resonance. As the units opened, the nullifiers emerged into Calthera's atmosphere, their amorphous bodies solidifying into vaguely humanoid shapes. Where features should have been, they possessed only smooth, reflective surfaces that rippled like disturbed mercury. "Find the Leonaran," Relari commanded them. "Contain the resonance. Eliminate all resistance." The nullifiers acknowledged with synchronized movements before dispersing in different directions, their bodies distorting space around them as they moved. Relari turned her attention back to the tactical display. "And what of the companion? Have we identified them?" "Limited data, Inquisitor," the lieutenant replied. "Local intelligence suggests a salvager named Vance, but background checks reveal inconsistencies. He appeared on Calthera approximately 7 years ago with no verifiable history." "Interesting." Relari's augmented eyes narrowed behind her faceplate. "Cross-reference with dormant threat assessments. Focus on operatives with extraction capabilities who disappeared around the time of the Leonaran Purge." The system processed her request, sifting through classified databases that few in the galaxy could access. After several moments, a single file appeared, heavily redacted even at her clearance level, but containing enough information to confirm her suspicion. "Eidolon," she whispered, "an unfamiliar sensation, something akin to excitement, stirring within her mechanically regulated emotional centers. The ghost returns." In the heart of the Ouroboros facility, Petra felt her sister's presence before any alert system detected it. The resonance within her surged in recognition, creating harmonic patterns that vibrated through her consciousness like forgotten music. "Nayar," she breathed, her hand pressing against the wall for support as the sensation overwhelmed her. Damon, fully armored as Eidolon, turned from the weapon system he was preparing. "What is it?" "My sister." Petra's silver eyes widened with impossible hope and terrible dread. "She's alive. She's here." "Impossible," Damon countered, though his posture betrayed uncertainty. "The records confirmed all Leonarans were eliminated except me." Petra shook her head. "You found one survivor. Why not two?" Before Damon could respond, the facility's proximity alerts blared. Something had breached the outermost perimeter, not through the entrance they had used, but by creating its own access point through solid bedrock. The security feed showed a figure moving through the newly formed tunnel with graceful purpose. Though humanoid in basic shape, its features remained obscured by a swirling veil of energy that distorted visual sensors. "It's her," Petra whispered, recognition transcending the distortion. "She's using the resonance to mask herself from detection." Damon activated the facility's defensive protocols, but Petra raised her hand to stop him. "No, I need to face her." "It could be a trap," he warned, battle reflexes already calculating trajectories and response options. "Or it could be the miracle we didn't dare hope for." Petra's expression hardened with determination. "Either way, I face her alone." After a tense moment, Damon nodded. "I'll continue preparations. The Inquisition is moving faster than anticipated." He hesitated, then added with uncharacteristic emotion, "Be careful." Petra made her way to the lower access corridor where sensors indicated the intruder would emerge. She waited, heart hammering against her ribs, hope and fear warring within her consciousness. The wall before her suddenly rippled like liquid molecular bonds, temporarily suspended as a figure stepped through solid matter as if it were merely dense fog. As the distortion field faded, Petra found herself face to face with a woman who might have been her reflection in a darker mirror. Nayar's violet skin bore the same iridescent quality as Petra's, but marred with ritual scarification that traced complex patterns across her exposed flesh. Her silver eyes held none of Petra's warmth, only cold calculation and ancient pain. Where Petra's white hair flowed freely, Nayar's was bound in tight braids adorned with metallic beads that hummed with contained energy. For a moment, neither spoke. The resonance flowed between them, two frequencies seeking harmony but finding only dissonance. "Sister," Petra finally whispered, the word carrying 15 years of grief and longing. "Is that what we still are?" Nayar's voice cut like crystalline shards. "Sisters? After you chose them over us?" Confusion flickered across Petra's face. "I don't understand. I was a child when our world burned. I had no choice in anything. Yet here you stand, harboring the very monster who orchestrated our destruction." Nayar's eyes flashed with barely contained fury. "Did you think I wouldn't recognize Eidolon? That I wouldn't feel his presence the moment you removed the containment seal?" "Damon saved me," Petra countered, defensive heat rising in her voice. "He defied orders to protect me. After executing those same orders against our people," Nayar spat. "One act of mercy doesn't erase a genocide, sister." The accusation struck with physical force, causing Petra to step back. "You don't know him. I know him better than you imagine." Nayar's expression twisted with bitter memory. "While you drifted in stasis, protected by your precious human, I survived. I endured. I remembered." Her hand rose to touch a particularly prominent scar that ran from her temple to her jaw, a mirror of the one Damon bore. "Some of us weren't granted the luxury of forgetting." Realization dawned slowly, horror creeping through Petra's consciousness. "You were there, at Terra Station 9. Subject 13, Nayar confirmed, her voice hollow. "While you were Subject 1, the pure sample, the perfect specimen." Bitterness laced her words. "I was considered contaminated, my resonance patterns altered by trauma, less valuable for their experiments." "I didn't know," Petra whispered. "The collar sealed my memories." "How convenient for both of you." Nayar stepped closer, her presence radiating cold power. "But I remember everything, sister, including the face of the operative who executed our people before taking special interest in a particular violet-skinned child." The implications crashed over Petra like physical blows. Damon, Eidolon, had been responsible not just for saving her, but for the destruction that necessitated that salvation. The cognitive dissonance threatened to overwhelm her. "Why are you here?" she managed finally. "To kill him? To take me? To save you from yourself?" Nayar's expression softened fractionally, revealing a glimpse of the sister Petra had lost. "The Inquisition has deployed nullifiers, Petra. They will extract the resonance from your body, a process no Leonaran has survived." Fear spiked through Petra's system. "Nullifiers?" "Abominations created from the harvested essence of our dead." Nayar's disgust was palpable. "The Federation's ultimate weapon against what they cannot control." "Then help us fight," Petra pleaded. "Together, our resonance could—" "I'm not here to fight," Nayar interrupted. "I'm here to offer escape." She extended her hand, energy crackling between her fingers. "Come with me. Now, before it's too late." Petra hesitated, conflict etched across her features. "I can't leave him. He left our entire race to die." Nayar's control slipped, the resonance around her flaring with dangerous intensity. "He is death incarnate, sister, the ghost who haunts what remains of our people." "He's also the father of my child," Petra stated quietly, her hand moving protectively to her abdomen. The words struck Nayar like physical blows. She recoiled, shock and revulsion warring on her face. "Impossible." "The resonance makes its own paths," Petra replied, echoing ancient Leonaran wisdom. "It seeks continuation." "Through him," Nayar hissed, her disbelief curdling into disgust. "You chose a human over your own kind, a killer over your own blood." "I chose love over hatred," Petra countered, her voice strengthening. Life over vengeance. Nayar stared at her for a long moment, the resonance between them vibrating with discordant frequencies. Finally, she stepped back, resignation replacing anger. Then you are truly lost, she whispered. You've sealed your fate, and that of your abomination. Sister, please. I have no sister, Nayar cut her off. She died with Leonara. The distortion field reactivated around her form, her features blurring into indistinct energy. When Eidolon destroys you, as he destroys everything he touches, remember that I offered salvation. Before Petra could respond, Nayar stepped backward through the solid wall, the molecular bonds resealing behind her as if she had never been there. Petra stood frozen, tears like liquid mercury tracking down her violet cheeks. The resonance within her surged with conflicting emotions, grief for the sister she had found only to lose again, doubt planted by revelations about Damon's past, and fierce determination to protect the new life growing within her. The facility's alarm system shattered her momentary paralysis. Proximity alerts blared from multiple sectors as the Inquisition forces converged on their location with unexpected precision. Somehow, they had been found. Damon burst into the corridor, his Eidolon armor fully activated, weapon systems humming with lethal potential. They've breached the outer defenses. We need to move. He stopped abruptly, registering Petra's expression. What happened? Before she could answer, the facility rocked with a massive impact. Emergency systems flared as structural integrity warnings cascaded across monitoring stations. Nullifiers, Petra explained, her voice tight with fear. They've deployed nullifiers, entities created from harvested Leonaran essence. They're designed to extract and neutralize the resonance. Damon's modulated voice hardened. Your sister? Gone. Petra's silver eyes reflected conflicting emotions. She came to warn me, to save me. Her hand unconsciously moved to her abdomen. But not you, not our child. Another impact shook the facility, closer this time. Security feeds showed 3 amorphous entities moving through the installation's defenses as if they barely existed, matter yielding before them like mist before a strong wind. We're out of time, Damon decided, activating the facility's final protocols. Emergency lighting shifted to combat mode as weapon systems throughout the Ouroboros powered to full capacity. I'll engage the nullifiers. You get to the emergency transport. I won't leave you, Petra insisted, the resonance within her surging with protective intensity. This isn't a debate. Damon's voice softened despite the electronic modulation. Our child is what matters now. The future. Before she could protest further, the corridor behind them exploded inward. Through the breach poured Inquisition shock troops, elite soldiers augmented with cybernetic enhancements and specialized anti-resonance weaponry. Behind them glided one of the nullifiers, its mercurial form rippling with hungry anticipation. Everything happened at once. Damon activated his combat systems, the Eidolon armor transforming from defensive posture to lethal efficiency. Concealed weapon ports opened across its surface, deploying a barrage of targeted munitions that tore through the front line of shock troops. His movements became a blur of precision violence, each strike calculated for maximum effect. "Run!" he shouted to Petra as he engaged the enemy, creating a barrier of controlled destruction between her and the assault force. But the moment of distraction cost him. The nullifier surged forward with impossible speed, bypassing the physical combat entirely to target Petra directly. Its amorphous body stretched across the space between them, reaching for her with tendrils of liquid metal that hummed with anti-resonance frequencies. Petra raised her hands defensively, the resonance responding to her fear with a barrier of crystallized energy. The nullifier's tendrils struck the barrier, creating a discordant screech that reverberated through the facility's structure. The shield held, but barely. "I can't hold it," she gasped, feeling the nullifier's essence working to unravel her defenses at the quantum level. In that critical moment, Nayar reappeared through the solid wall behind Petra. Without warning, she seized her sister in a grip that pulsed with resonance energy. "Forgive me," she whispered as reality distorted around them. Damon turned just in time to see Petra vanish, pulled through dimensional barriers by her sister's power. His moment of shock nearly proved fatal as Inquisition fire converged on his position. Only the advanced defensive systems of the Eidolon armor saved him from immediate destruction. "Petra!" he roared, fury and desperation merging into a battle cry that hadn't been heard in galactic conflict for 15 years. The Eidolon, the true Eidolon, not the broken man who had hidden on Calthera, emerged fully in that moment of crisis. Tactical systems integrated directly with his neural pathways, transforming thought into action with lethal efficiency. His synthetic arm, now enhanced by the armor's combat protocols, deployed weapon systems that hadn't been seen since the darkest days of the Federation conflicts. The corridor became a killing field as Damon unleashed the full capacity of his augmented capabilities. Shock troops fell by the dozen, their advanced armor proving inadequate against weapons specifically designed to terminate high-value targets. The nullifier recoiled from the onslaught, its adaptive programming struggling to categorize the threat before it. But Damon didn't pursue his advantage against the assembled forces. Instead, he activated the Ouroboros facility's most classified protocol, Omega Contingency. Explosives embedded throughout the ancient battleship skeleton armed simultaneously, creating a countdown to structural collapse that would bury the installation and everything within it. Using the momentary confusion, he charged toward the command center where the facility's tracking systems might locate Petra's unique resonance signature. If Nayar had indeed taken her sister, there would be traces, quantum echoes that the Eidolon armor's sensors could follow. Petra materialized in a chamber she didn't recognize, the dimensional transition leaving her disoriented and nauseated. She collapsed to her knees, the resonance within her fluctuating wildly from the forced translocation. "What have you done?" she gasped, looking up at her sister who stood impassively above her. "Saved you from your own foolishness," Nayar replied, adjusting controls on what appeared to be an ancient Leonaran control console, technology that should have been extinct. "The nullifiers cannot track you through dimensional barriers." Petra struggled to her feet, taking in her surroundings. They stood in what appeared to be a small spacecraft's interior, but the design followed Leonaran architectural principles, organic curves and living metal that responded to the presence of resonance. "A harmony vessel," she breathed in disbelief. "How did you—" "Not all of our technology was destroyed," Nayar cut her off. "Some of us preserved what mattered." Her expression hardened. "While others consorted with our executioners." "He isn't what you think," Petra insisted, though doubt flickered in her voice. "Damon made mistakes, terrible ones, but he's tried to atone." "Atone?" Nayar laughed bitterly. "Can the dead forgive? Can ashes grant absolution?" She turned to face her sister fully. "He was Eidolon, Petra, the shadow operative who led the final assault on our homeworld. His hands are stained with the blood of millions of our kind." The accusation hung in the air between them, heavy with implications Petra couldn't deny. She had seen the truth in Damon's memories, in the fragments that had returned to her when the collar was removed. "I know what he was," she said quietly. "I also know what he became, what we can become together. Sentiment." Nayar spat the word like poison. "While you played house with a killer, I was gathering our surviving technologies, preserving our culture, searching for a way to restore what was lost." She gestured around them. This vessel contains genetic samples from over 30 Leonaran family lines. With the resonance, we could potentially restore our people. Hope and disbelief warred in Petra's expression. Others survived? No. Nayar's voice softened fractionally. Just us, the last daughters of Leonara. Her gaze dropped to Petra's abdomen. Until your indiscretion. My child is not an indiscretion, Petra stated firmly, protective instinct flaring. It's the future, a bridge between worlds that have only known conflict. It's an abomination, Nayar countered, a dilution of everything we were, or an evolution of everything we could be. Petra's silver eyes flashed with sudden intensity. The resonance chose this path, sister. It recognized possibility where you see only contamination. Nayar stared at her for a long moment, conflict evident in her expression. Finally, she sighed. It doesn't matter. The Inquisition has deployed the genocide protocol. Even now, spatial rifts are forming throughout the Calthera system. Soon, this entire sector will be purged from reality itself. What? Horror dawned on Petra's face. We have to stop it. Damon is still there. Let him die with his sins, Nayar said coldly, turning back to the control console. We'll be safely beyond the dimensional barrier when the protocol completes. No. Petra's voice hardened with sudden resolve. The resonance within her surged, responding to her determination with crystalline clarity. I will not abandon him, or anyone on that planet. Before Nayar could react, Petra channeled the resonance in a precise pattern she hadn't known she remembered. The vessel's systems responded to her command, recognizing her unique frequency. Emergency protocols activated, halting the launch sequence Nayar had initiated. What are you doing? Nayar demanded, attempting to override the systems. What our people should have done from the beginning, Petra replied, her voice carrying new authority. Not hiding our power, not using it for destruction, but sharing it to heal. She closed her eyes, focusing on the connection she shared with Damon, the quantum entanglement that had formed between them during their union. Through that connection, she sent her consciousness racing back toward Calthera, toward the man fighting desperately to find her. Damon fought through waves of Inquisition forces, the Eidolon armor sustaining damage but remaining operational as he carved a path toward the facility's primary scanner array. If he could activate it before the Ouroboros collapsed, he might locate Petra's resonance signature. The nullifiers proved more challenging than the shock troops. Their adaptive forms absorbed conventional weapons fire, forcing Damon to rely on the armor's more exotic capabilities, phase disruptors and quantum destabilizers that attacked the very fabric of the entity's existence. He had eliminated 2 of the 3 when the command center finally came into view. But blocking his path stood High Inquisitor Relari herself, her ceremonial armor humming with power specifically calibrated to counter the Eidolon systems. The ghost returns, she observed, her artificial voice carrying a note of anticipation. After all these years, Eidolon graces us with his presence once more. Damon activated his remaining weapons, though internal diagnostics warned of critical system damage throughout the armor. Stand aside, Relari. This doesn't concern you. Oh, but it does. The Inquisitor's augmented eyes gleamed with fanatical purpose. The last Leonaran and the Federation's most notorious deserter, together. It's almost poetic. The poetry will have to wait, Damon replied, noting the countdown timer in his helmet display. 3 minutes until the Ouroboros collapsed. The genocide protocol, call it off. Relari laughed, the sound distorted by her vocal modulators. Already initiated. Even now, reality fractures around this pathetic planet. Soon, Calthera 6 and everything within a light year will cease to exist, scrubbed from space-time itself. Her posture shifted subtly to combat readiness. But I wanted the pleasure of eliminating you personally, Eidolon, for old time's sake. She attacked with blinding speed, her augmented physiology enhanced further by her specialized armor. Damon parried the initial assault, but R'Lari's secondary systems deployed, neural disruptors that targeted the interface between his consciousness and the Eidolon armor's combat protocols. Pain lanced through his nervous system as connections destabilized. He countered with a barrage of targeted strikes, forcing R'Lari to defend rather than press her advantage. But the Inquisitor had planned for this confrontation, her system specifically calibrated to exploit the weaknesses in Eidolon technology. As they fought through the collapsing facility, alarms blaring around them, Damon realized with growing certainty that he wouldn't survive this encounter. The Eidolon armor, formidable as it was, had been designed 15 years ago. R'Lari's systems represented the cutting edge of Federation military technology, refined through years of hunting the galaxy's most dangerous entities. 2 minutes remaining. Damon changed tactics, abandoning conventional combat protocols for a desperate gambit. He overcharged the armor's power core, a modification he'd installed specifically for scenarios where survival wasn't the primary objective. The resulting energy surge would destroy everything within a 100-meter radius, including himself. "For Petra," he whispered, initiating the sequence. But before the command could execute, reality itself seemed to ripple around them. The air between Damon and R'Lari crystallized into geometric patterns that expanded outward like fractal ice. Time slowed, then stopped, particles suspended in perfect stasis. Through this crystallized moment stepped Petra, her form glowing with resonance energy that pulsed in harmony with the life growing within her. She moved through the frozen battlefield with serene purpose, approaching Damon's armored form. "Petra," he breathed, the armor systems momentarily stabilizing in her presence. "How?" "The resonance remembers," she said simply, placing her hand against his damaged breastplate. "And so do I. All of it, Damon. The truth of what you were, what you did." Shame and resignation filled him. "Then you know Nayar was right, about me, about everything." "I know you've suffered for your choices," she replied, her voice gentle but firm. "But suffering isn't redemption, Damon. Action is." She gestured to the frozen tableau around them. "This cycle of violence ends now." "The genocide protocol has been activated," he warned. "The dimensional rifts have already begun forming. There's no stopping it." "Perhaps not with Federation technology." Petra's silver eyes glowed with inner light. "But the resonance exists beyond conventional dimensions. It can heal what has been broken, if channeled properly." 1 minute remaining. "The cost would be too high," Damon argued, understanding dawning. "Redirecting that much energy through yourself would—" "Not through me alone," she interrupted, taking his hand and placing it against her abdomen where their child grew. "Through us. All three of us." The implication staggered him. "The baby is already stronger than either of us could have imagined," Petra confirmed, a smile of wonder touching her lips. "The resonance flows through our child like a river through its natural course. What was forced and constrained in us is effortless for this new life." She pressed her forehead against his helmet, the resonance flowing between them, intensifying. "Trust me, Damon. Trust us." In that moment of connection, something fundamental shifted within him. The man who had been Eidolon, the ghost, the killer, the weapon, surrendered fully to something greater than himself. Not just to Petra or their unborn child, but to the possibility they represented together. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice stripped of modulation, revealing only the man beneath the armor. "Hold me," she whispered, "and don't let go, no matter what happens." 30 seconds. Damon gathered her into his arms as the stasis field began to collapse around them. Rilari's frozen form flickered with returning motion. The facility's structural supports groaned with imminent failure. Petra closed her eyes, channeling the resonance through the unique connection she shared with Damon and their unborn child. The energy manifested visibly, silver light flowing from her body through Damon's armor, creating a circuit of power that amplified with each passing second. As Rilari broke free from the temporal stasis, weapon raised to strike, Petra released the contained resonance in a single, perfect wave that expanded outward at the speed of thought. The wave caught Rilari first, her augmented body freezing as the resonance rewrote the quantum structure of her being at the most fundamental level. But unlike Petra's earlier defensive display, this transformation didn't crystallize or destroy. Instead, it revealed, peeling back layers of cybernetic enhancement and fanatical conditioning to expose the human core that remained. The resonance continued outward, engulfing the facility, the planet, the system. Everywhere it touched, reality responded, not fracturing as the genocide protocol intended, but healing. The dimensional rifts that had begun to form collapsed back into stable space-time. The nullifiers dissolved, their harvested essence returning to the cosmic flow rather than remaining trapped in profane forms. And at the center of this transformation stood Damon and Petra, locked in an embrace that defied conventional understanding. The Ouroboros facility collapsed around them, but the resonance created a pocket of stable reality within the destruction, protecting them from what should have been certain death. As the wave reached its furthest extent, encountering the Inquisition fleet in orbit, Petra felt her sister's presence connect with the resonance field. Nayar's consciousness merged briefly with the expanding awareness, her bitter resistance giving way to astonished recognition. "This is what we were meant to be," Petra projected into the connection. "Not weapons or victims, healers." The response came faintly, tinged with lingering doubt but also newfound wonder. Perhaps. When the resonance wave finally dissipated, Damon and Petra found themselves standing amid the ruins of the Ouroboros facility. Around them, Inquisition forces lay unconscious but alive, their weapons and armor transformed into inert material. Rilari herself lay nearby, her augmentations gone, reduced to the woman she had been before the Inquisition had remade her into their instrument. Damon's Eidolon armor had also transformed, the weapon systems and combat protocols replaced with simpler, protective functions. The serpent symbol on the breastplate remained, but now it appeared alive, vibrant rather than predatory. "What did you do?" he asked in wonder, removing his helmet to reveal a face transformed by awe. "We remembered who we truly are," Petra replied, exhaustion evident in her voice but triumph shining in her silver eyes. "And we reminded them, too." She swayed suddenly, strength failing as the enormous expenditure of energy caught up with her. Damon caught her as she collapsed, cradling her against his chest. "Petra!" Fear lanced through him as her eyes fluttered closed. But before panic could fully take hold, she smiled weakly. "I'm all right," she assured him. "Just tired." Her hand found his, guiding it to her abdomen where a subtle pulse of energy responded to his touch. "We're all right." Relief flooded through him, followed by a surge of protective love so intense it threatened to overwhelm his composure. "Don't scare me like that again," he managed, his voice rough with emotion. "No promises," she whispered, her eyes opening to meet his. "We have a rather extraordinary life ahead of us." Above them, the crimson sky of Calthera had cleared, revealing stars that pulsed with renewed vigor. Across the galaxy, those sensitive to quantum fluctuations felt a subtle shift, a harmonic resonance that suggested new possibilities in a universe long governed by conflict and fear. Damon looked down at Petra, at the miraculous woman who had transformed not just reality, but his own soul, and whispered the only truth that mattered. "I love you." Her answering smile contained universes. I know. 1 year later. The monastery on Tareth Prime had stood for millennia, its ancient stone walls bearing witness to the rise and fall of civilizations. Nestled in a valley surrounded by mist-shrouded mountains, it had served as neutral ground for countless diplomatic negotiations throughout galactic history. Today, it hosted perhaps its most unlikely gathering yet. In the central meditation chamber, delegates from 17 species, many of whom had been at war until recently, sat in respectful silence as Petra moved among them. Her violet skin glowed with subtle luminescence as she carried her infant daughter, Nala, from one representative to another. The child, impossibly beautiful with skin that shifted between her mother's violet and more human tones depending on her mood, reached out with tiny hands to touch each delegate's face. With each contact, a spark of resonance transferred, not enough to grant power, but sufficient to share memory and emotion. Feel what we felt, Petra explained to the assembled dignitaries. Know what we knew. Choose with full understanding rather than fear. At the chamber's edge, Damon observed the proceedings with quiet pride. The Eidolon armor was gone, replaced by simpler attire that emphasized function over intimidation. Yet his presence still commanded respect, not as a ghost or a weapon, but as the protector of something precious. Since the events on Calthera 6, renamed Harmony by its inhabitants, much had changed throughout the galaxy. The Inquisition had dissolved, its members awakening from decades of conditioning to confront the atrocities committed in the name of order. The Federation Council itself had undergone radical reformation after the emotional memories of the Leonaran Purge had been shared with its members, and Damon had found purpose beyond atonement. In a secure facility beneath the monastery, he trained a new generation of operatives, not in the arts of death as Eidolon had once done, but in protection, in understanding, in healing. His students included former enemies, refugees, and even a few reformed inquisitors seeking redemption of their own. The galaxy remained dangerous, but for the first time in generations, possibility outweighed fear. As the diplomatic session concluded, Nayar entered the chamber. Her relationship with Petra remained complicated. Too much history and pain lay between them for simple reconciliation. But the Harmony vessel she had preserved now served as the cornerstone of a new Leonaran cultural repository, ensuring their knowledge and traditions would survive. The Coreward delegations have agreed to the accords, she informed Damon, her tone professionally neutral. Time had softened her hatred toward him, though true forgiveness remained distant. Your security assessments were accurate. Thank you, he replied with equal formality. They had developed a fragile working relationship based on their shared commitment to Petra and Nala's safety. Nayar's gaze shifted to her sister and niece across the chamber. Something like wonder briefly softened her expression. She's growing stronger. Every day, Damon agreed, unable to keep pride from his voice. The resonance flows through her differently than it did for either of you. More integrated. Evolution, Nayar murmured, echoing Petra's words from months before. Perhaps that was always the intention. After the delegates departed, Damon and Petra returned to their private quarters within the monastery. A simple room with large windows overlooking the valley, it contained few possessions, save for those with true meaning. On a small altar in the corner rested the transformed remains of the collar, the containment device that had once sealed Petra's power and Damon's memories. The metal had reshaped itself during the resonance wave, forming two interlocking rings that gleamed with inner light. From chains to choice, Petra said softly, noticing Damon's gaze on the rings. She placed the sleeping Nala in her crib, the child's dreams manifesting as tiny motes of light that danced above her peaceful form. Damon approached the altar, lifting one of the rings with reverent care. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. Choosing this path? Choosing me? Petra took the second ring, her silver eyes meeting his with unwavering certainty. Never. She placed the ring on his finger, its material reshaping subtly to fit perfectly. You once thought you freed a slave. Instead, I unleashed a goddess, he completed, placing the matching ring on her finger with gentle precision. And she gave you eternity, Petra finished, leaning in to kiss him as the resonance hummed between them, a perfect harmony of possibility and promise. Outside their window, the stars pulsed with renewed vigor, as if the universe itself celebrated the union that had transformed destruction into creation, hatred into love, and isolation into connection. The resonance had found its true expression at last.